how do you deal with self-doubts with a PhD, and what is this imposter syndrome? So this imposter syndrome is kind of a common thing. I haven't done a lot of research in this area, but I do know of it. It is this common thing where, professionals that are, world class, they think that they don't belong in that particular setting, right? So they feel that they're just not necessarily ready for this particular thing. So they have a lot of self-doubt with what they're doing. I personally think it's because you're an expert, so you understand all the different limitations that you personally have, right? You realize that you are limited in a lot of different ways, where somebody that's not an expert is not going to be able to see that kind of stuff. So you're more likely to have this imposter syndrome than somebody else. So how do you actually deal with the self-doubt, particularly when you do a PhD? It's really common in a lot of different sort of areas, right? In a PhD, you're probably a little bit more likely to feel the self-doubt all the time. And you feel all the time, this is my own experience, right? I've done this. You feel all the time, and I still feel all the time, I'm being completely real, that you are not finished and you are not sort of at the level of what everybody else is around you. There's so many smarter people out in the world doing more incredible things than you're doing. And why should you actually be even talking to those people? I get that literally every day. I'm like, what? This is bizarre. So what do you do? So how do you actually deal with this kind of feeling? Normal, first of all, when you're doing a PhD, absolutely normal. Lots of people go through this. And if you're experiencing these self-doubts, you're often just comparing yourself to what the capabilities of what other people are doing. There's some things that you should probably know with that. So first of all, the sort of thing that you're seeing that other people are projecting, it is their on-stage perspective, right? So I think it's Goffman, I don't know if I'm saying that correct, but he was a sociologist that sort of pointed out that people have this on-stage, off-stage perspective or sort of thing that happens. So when they're off stage, you imagine like when you're in a play, right? That if you're off stage, there's lots of mess that's going on. It's really dirty and kind of a disaster in the background. But then on stage, everything looks perfect and the play is going wonderfully well. And that's what happens with people too. They're projecting that everything looks wonderful, right? So if you look at their CV or the resume, so it's going to say that they've accomplished all this wonderful stuff, but you don't see all the sort of mess that went on behind it, and you don't get the whole story behind every single one of those things that they did. And I guarantee every one of those things that they did had a giant mess, and it was a disaster until it actually got published, and then it was done, and then they're like all of a sudden wonderful, right? I guarantee, from experience, that's what happens. And that definitely happens. And then so you're looking at kind of the good things that people have when you're looking at the resume or looking what other people are doing. You don't realize that they could be kind of a mess inside and in many different dimensions. That's all I'm going to say. The other thing that you should be well aware of is that because everybody else is doing this, they all are kind of really fragile, right? It's kind of the whole structure of academia is kind of pretty fragile in a lot of different senses because, people are sort of doing these projections of how they're doing and how they're feeling, but really everybody is kind of really experiencing a lot of self-doubt themselves. So how do you actually deal with this? I would just tell you to keep moving forward and just keep doing it slowly. Don't stop with your PhD. This is kind of really normal. It's the same thing. Entrepreneurs will feel the same thing too. And you just have to keep going and moving forward in that particular perspective. And people will say, well, why are you studying that thing? That's really stupid. And I guarantee they're going to say that. It's happened to everybody. And in particular, people that are really novel and studying sort of really novel areas, they get that a lot more. Because they are doing something that makes people kind of nervous. It's not necessarily like because they're jealous. It's just because it makes them nervous because they're doing something that's in a new area and people are just not sure what to make of that, right? So just keep moving forward, keep pushing forward, and some of those things are going to go to rest, right? After time, you're going to feel more comfortable with that particular part of it, with the thing that you're studying. Block out the negative people as much as you can, right? So the way that I did this, and in the way that, was taught to me, and you can actually look at, there's this physicist, and I'm blanking on his name. He's really famous. He was at Caltech. I'm totally blanking on his name, but he used to say, there's a great book about it too. Anyways, he used to just say disregard. Feynman, that's who it is. Just disregard as much as you can, right? All this kind of crap that's happening all around you. Disregard all that negative stuff and just keep going forward, and just keep moving forward. If there's people that are not giving you good mojo, find somebody else that will give you good mojo. And yes, I know you have obligations to sort of be around those certain people that sort of drag you down. Well, spend your time with those people as little as you can. And then, eventually things will work out in your favor. If you keep working on that mojo and you keep sort of finding people that give you good mojo going forward, that's gonna go right there, right? It's gonna keep you going. And sometimes you can flip those people that are really negative. You can flip it around, right? So you can just say, I don't know how to politely say this, but bugger off, get lost, right? And use that to incentivize you to push forward in this particular thing that they don't know what they're talking about, and just keep pushing forward. And that's really what it is. You have to use that negative emotion to keep going. And that's really going to get to you. The other thing is, and this is a really nice trick, look back at what you've accomplished so far. So instead of thinking about forward facing, so instead of looking to see where you're going to go, look back at all the stuff that you've done, despite the fact that you're probably limited in a lot of different ways. We're all human beings. We're all limited in a lot of different ways. Look back and say, wow, I actually did this.